Okay, it's time to talk about Zelda 2. It's way different than the first Zelda game. It's challenging, it's cryptic, but it's just great.
Zelda 2: The Adventures of Link, Lonk, is one of those games that tends to be pretty polarizing. There are a lot of people that really like this game, and then there's a lot of people that don't. But a lot of the people that don't, I feel, have maybe written it off prematurely, gotten that hive mind mentality, on the "it's too different, it's too hard, we don't want it" kick.
I used to be one of those people. Everyone always talked about how hard it was, and I probably played it for a few minutes, died, and thought it was a fault of the game. Obviously, I just didn't know what I was doing. But when I finally sat down and gave the game a solid chance, I found quite the adventure of Link.
So yes, as I said, Zelda 2 is very different than other Zelda games. Instead of using what would be known as the traditional style of an overhead view like the first one, Nintendo opted to adopt a more action-oriented platforming perspective. This is one of the big criticisms of the game. It's too different. Well, this was only the second Legend of Zelda game that came out, so the traditional style as we know it wasn't traditional yet. And besides, when you break it down, modern 3D Zelda games share a lot more similarities with Zelda 2 than The Legend of Zelda. So, nyah! Next up, the difficulty. It's too hard. Yeah, okay, it is hard. But you know what? Man up and deal with the challenge. Learn to play the game and quit complaining. So, nyah! Again. We don't want it. Yes. Yes, you do. Nyah! Several years after Link pieced together the Triforce of Wisdom, destroyed the evil Ganon, and rescued Princess Zelda, a curse has befallen the land, causing monsters to appear more frequently and casting Zelda into a deep sleep. Ganon's minions are restless, and they want to bring back the evil pigman. That's bad, and you don't want it to happen. Otherwise, Ganon isn't even in the game.
Yeah, for being the main baddie across the majority of the games throughout the Zelda timeline, it's interesting that in this one, he's dead the whole time. The only time he shows up is at the game over screen.
This screen is so simple but menacing. That's good. So to wake Zelda up and prevent Ganon from coming back, you need to get the Triforce of Courage, which is tucked away and safeguarded in the Great Palace. It has this force field that blocks your entry unless you defeat the Guardians in each of the 6 lesser palaces and place a magic gem in a rock statue. You've got all the gems on you already, you just gotta get there and pop them in. You always start at the Northern Palace, where Zelda is snoozing at, regardless of if you're just starting the game, continuing a previous save file, or just continuing after getting a game over. As far as save files go, it's just like the first game. You get 3. As soon as you leave the Northern Palace, you find yourself on the Overworld, where there's no combat. At least not directly like in The Legend of Zelda. Rather, there's enemy spawns that travel around and move towards you when you step over grass, desert, swamp, pretty much anything other than a pathway tile. If they chase you down while you're on one of those, it'll start an encounter with nothing. Just walk off screen and continue. But if they catch you anywhere else, it's time to battle. You can fight everything or nothing in these encounters. Same deal, make your way to the edge of the screen and you'll exit and continue. There's towns you'll go to with lots of people in them. Sometimes these people tell you useful information. Other times it's just cryptic nonsense.
This is something people complain about as well, how cryptic the game can be. Castlevania 2 is the same way. I can't criticize it too much because, this game's like 30 years old and the internet exists.
In every town, there's a wise man that will teach you a magic spell. Yeah, this is something else that was new for this game. Magic. In most Zelda games, you have magic items, sure, but in this go-around, Link can actually learn legit magic spells. Some of these spells you'll find yourself using a lot because they're really helpful. Spells like Life that heal some of your health, and Shield that beefs up your armor. You also have Jump and Fairy, which lets you jump higher and gives you the ability to turn into a fairy. There's also 2 towns that have warriors that'll teach you new sword techniques, the upstab and the downstab. The downstab lets you bounce on enemies, which is great when you want to get through areas quickly and avoid combat. Speaking of combat, it's really hard to get used to how Link controls in a platforming setting at first, especially since his sword seems so short. But man, once you get the hang of it, it is really satisfying. I'm no pro by any means. In fact, that's one of the parts of the game I still struggle with the most. But to watch someone who's really good at the game play it, it's really quite something. There's a decent variety of enemies you'll find throughout Hyrule this time around, and there's different ones that show up in different kinds of areas. There's sandworms in the desert, swamps sometimes feature these angry birds, and there's boomerang muskrats and axe-wielding gators in caves. In the palaces, you get a whole nother set of enemies. Skeletons, golem guys, skull bubbles that take 1 billion hits to kill, and iron knuckles, who attack with a sword but not knuckles. Huh. Jump and hit him in the face! Watch out for the blue ones though, they throw swords. I hate them. But I like this guy, he always seems like he's having a great time. Yeah! It's easy to get lost in the palaces, as there's lots of branching paths, locked doors, and elevators. You'll need to look everywhere though, because you don't want to miss anything. In addition to placing a gem in each palace, remember the 6 gems? In addition to placing a gem, each palace contains a special treasure. You'll basically need all of them to get through the game, and they all do different things. The glove allows you to break certain blocks with your sword, the boots let you walk across some water tiles, and the raft takes you across to the other continent. Yeah, the game is like split into chunks. Anyway, you'll need these in addition to other useful items you'll find throughout the world. One interesting thing to note is the lack of weapons. You have your sword, sure, and I assume it's the magic sword from the first one, but that's it. No boomerang, no bow, no bombs, they're all missing.
I assume this was because Nintendo wanted that close combat to be a major part of the game, and it's done well enough to where, honestly, you don't miss those other items. It's just something I found interesting. That's it, we can continue the review.
Anyway, back to the palaces, which is really the meat of the game. Well, that and the caves, I guess. It's like 2 meats. Each palace has a boss. Some of these guys aren't too difficult, like old Horsehead here. You just jump up and hit him in his horsehead. Then there's this big dude. He's got some solid range with his mace. You'll want to do this little duck jump attack at his midsection and get out of the way. Pro Strat! The complexity of the palaces and the enemies and bosses get harder as you go on. Luckily, you get stronger. Link can gain experience in this game. That's another thing that sets this one apart. You level up. That's right, this is the closest resemblance to a full-fledged RPG as you're likely to find within a Zelda game. When you level up, you'll be able to upgrade your attack, magic, or health. You can also increase your health and magic capacity by collecting hearts and magic bottles that are hidden here and there. Speaking of hearts, enemies don't drop them. The only way to heal yourself is with a life spell or a fairy. You can sometimes find them in the overworld and in palaces. Otherwise, you can heal at towns. You can get some magic back from these little potions that enemies drop sometimes, so that's pretty helpful. After you place the 6 gems, it's time to head to the Great Palace. This is one of the hardest parts of the game. Not the Great Palace itself, I mean sure it's challenging as well, but the path to just get there in the first place is rough. First you'll pass through this fenced area where these lizards throw rocks at you. Hey! Get out of here. Then you need to get past some fiery caves with these eyeball guys flying around. Yeah, back to the Northern Palace again. When you finally get through, the game throws you a bone. If you game over in the Great Palace, you start back at the Great Palace when you continue. This is great because as hard as the path is to get there, once you're there, you're good. The Great Palace has its own music, and it's... Oh crap, did I not mention the music? Well, it's just great. The Great Palace is really mazy, and it's easy to get lost and just end up going in a circle. The enemies here are so much harder and more annoying than others in the game. These guys hop around and toss fireballs at you. We call them spicy chickens. Then there's the Chicken Knights. They are fast, they can jump super high, and they throw swords. This is Nintendo being like, ha, good luck, sucker. I just do my best to get past these guys without taking too much damage. By the way, does anyone else think these tiles look like Pez? Maybe I just got candy on the brain. Also native to the Great Palace are these jumbo slimes that explode into regular slimes. Oh, they're actually called bots. Alright. When you finally find your way to the end of the Great Palace, you have to fight the Thunderbird. This guy is impervious to your attacks until you cast thunder on him. After that, you can jump up and jab at his face while avoiding his fireballs. He'll start dropping more and more of them as he gets closer to dying.
Yeah, that classic gaming goodness where you can tell the boss is getting pissed. Alright, the Triforce of Courage.
Oh, but it's not yours yet. First you need to face your ultimate enemy. Yourself. Who is essentially a pushover and can by and large be destroyed by ducking in the corner and continuously attacking. But once he's defeated, you'll get the Triforce of Courage. Woo! In combining the Triforce of Courage with the other 2 pieces Link has from the first game, he completes the Triforce, which breaks the curse and awakens fair Zelda. And she gives him a kiss. Yeah, she actually kisses him in this one, or at least it's implied. Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. It's so good, you guys. It has everything that makes a Zelda game great, it's just delivered in a different format. The music, the action, the fun, it's all there. Well, it doesn't really have any dungeon puzzles, but it's still a fantastic game, and its differences should be celebrated rather than judged. I can't state enough how wrong I was about this game. The fact that I was so quick to dismiss it is just downright disrespectful to how good of an experience it ended up being. Don't get me wrong, it's not a perfect game, there's no such thing, but having since beaten it, I've developed a newfound appreciation for it. It's just a shame it took so long for me to see the light. And hey, if you want more Zelda 2, there's always the Zelda 2 randomizer made by my buddy Digshake. It randomizes the entire game, the map, the dungeon layout, enemy and item placement, and more. There's lots of crazy situations that can come as a result of the different options, and it's a whole lot of fun to play and watch. You can download the latest version via the link in the description.
Well, that's Zelda 2. I feel like I've said everything I can about it at this point. All I can hope for is that if you don't like the game, maybe you'll try it again with a new perspective. And if you do like the game, pop it in and play it again. Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching as always. I'm D-Pad Danny, and I will see you next time.